Let's say a certain enterprising person in antiquity decided to go into business. One of the most profitable businesses at that time was the trade in tools, especially bipeds and talking ones, that is, slaves. The price of a slave, in addition to market conditions, was determined by the following main characteristics of a living commodity. Age. Very little was given for children. For the elderly, too, boys and girls were most valued. Health. A frail and sickly slave cost much less than a strong and healthy one. Knowledge of languages. A slave who did not understand Latin was of little use, but the knowledge of the Greek language increased its price many times over. If a slave understood Punic, Syriac, or Egyptian, he could be sold profitably to sea merchants who needed an interpreter. Education. The ability to read and write made it possible to use a slave as a secretary or an estate manager. Such slaves cost 10 times more expensive than illiterate ones. Beauty or special external qualities. Blonde slaves with thick hair, who did not even know Latin, were willingly bought by matrons. Their hair was valued for making wigs. Skills and talents. Prices for musicians, dancers, teachers, architects, doctors, and other qualified specialists started from 10,000 denarii. Obedience. If it was known that this slave was a rebel, prone to escape or crime, the price for him fell many times. It was most profitable to sell slaves of the highest price category, that is, elite and peace. First of all, exotic singers and musicians from distant countries, beautiful boys and girls, were considered particularly valuable goods. They were not put up in the markets, but auctions were held in villas, where buyers from among the patricians and nobles outbid each other's price, which sometimes caused it to skyrocket. But beauty and youth pass quickly. Even the most beautiful young slave will eventually become just pretty, and then she will grow old altogether. That is, the purchase of such slaves was a very dubious investment. Smart rich people invested in famous gladiators, which could be rented out. For every game with the participation of the famous champion, Roman circuses paid their owner a round sum, so that such a purchase paid off in less than a year. Unless, of course, the gladiator is killed during the performance. Gladiators could cost tens of thousands of denarii. The price depended not so much on fighting qualities as on the fame of this particular athlete. Roman nobles willingly bought slave teachers, who sometimes cost no less. The Greek teacher saved the scion of a noble family from having to attend school with the children of any common people. The martial arts teacher helped him become a real warrior, which later helped in his military career. But the teachers of philosophy and rhetoric were most valued, because both Roman politics and law were, in fact, competitions in eloquence. The skillfully staged skill of public speaking was absolutely necessary for any Roman politician. Mathematics and other exact sciences were not considered necessary for the offspring of a patrician family. At the same time, slave engineers and architects were highly valued, not for training, but for practical work. After all, the patricians not only built villas and mansions for themselves, but being elected magistrates, they could manage road or city construction. In such cases, they needed qualified personnel, and if it was a question of long-term projects, then a slave was cheaper than a hired specialist, who, moreover, were few in antiquity. A good doctor, educated in foreign, Greek, or Egyptian academies, also cost a lot of money. Doctors, along with teachers and secretaries, were included in a special category of slaves, who were treated almost like family members. They were housed in a separate room, well-dressed, fed from the master's table. They sometimes had personal property, and after several years of faithful service, the owner usually gave them freedom, and they could open their own business. Such slaves were freed but not resold because they knew a lot about the personal life of their owners, and political opponents, having bought such a slave, could use this information.